with all of those other things going on, the news also just continues to break on the existential scandal that threatens this new presidency, as well as members of the new administration and multiple members of the president's campaign. This was President Trump speaking today at the United Nations, which itself was a spectacle like we have not seen from another American president ever. We'll be talking with Andrea Mitchell about that in just a few minutes. But while that speech by the president was happening at the United Nations today, simultaneously at that moment, the president's longtime personal lawyer and a longtime Trump Organization executive named Michael Cohen, while the president was speaking at the UN, Michael Cohen at that moment was flunking out of his testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee today. Michael Cohen's lawyers had apparently agreed with the committee that he would appear voluntarily and behind closed doors. They reportedly agreed that neither Mr. Cohen nor the committee would make any public remarks today about his testimony. But then Michael Cohen broke the deal. He gave a copy of what he said was his testimony to a bunch of reporters. And when the committee found that out, they threw him out. Deal broken. So, yeah, no more testifying behind closed doors. Now they will be bringing Michael Cohen back in open session in an open televised hearing on October 25th. Now, as that news was breaking today, Reuters was first to report that for the first time in modern political history, a sitting president is using campaign funds and funds donated to the Republican Party to pay for his own legal defense in the Russia matter, in this criminal and counterintelligence probe that's being led by the former FBI director and now special counsel, Robert Mueller. Do you know anybody who bought a Make America Great Again hat or bumper sticker or some mean thing about wishing violence on Hillary Clinton that was an official project of the Trump re-election campaign? Well, if you know anybody who bought merchandise like that or otherwise gave money to the Trump re-election campaign, we now know what those dollars actually went to pay for. They went to pay for the president's legal fees. I mean, it's an unusual thing, right? I mean, other presidents haven't done this, so that's unusual enough. But for this guy in particular, for a president who built his public and political persona on being so rich, it is a fairly stunning turn of events that instead of paying his own legal bills, he's getting regular people around the country who thought they were making political contributions to instead pay his personal bills for his legal defense. At least now we know why he formally, legally established his re-election campaign on the very first day of his presidency. The formation of that campaign gave him a vehicle to raise funds from regular people around the country that he apparently quickly started diverting from any actual re-election campaign to instead paying his lawyers on the Russia thing, and also paying his family's lawyers on the Russia thing. We learned in July that the Trump re-election campaign had spent $50,000 that they got from campaign donations on the services of a personal lawyer for Donald Trump Jr. That payment, incidentally, preceded any public disclosure of the news that Donald Trump Jr. had attended that meeting with Russian operatives at Trump Tower during the campaign because he was interested in the Russians' promise that their government had damaging information on Hillary Clinton, which the Russians wanted to convey to the Trump campaign. Before we learned about him attending that meeting, apparently the Trump re-election campaign had already cut a $50,000 check to a personal lawyer for Donald Trump Jr., a personal lawyer who now continues to represent the president's son on issues related to the Russia scandal. Well, now tonight, the Wall Street Journal reports that after the president's re-election campaign spent $50,000 on Donald Jr.'s lawyer in June, thereafter, the Republican Party also spent another $196,000 on Russia lawyers for Donald Trump Jr. Now, tonight, NBC News confirms that it goes beyond the spending on the president's son and his lawyers. The Republican National Committee will apparently report tomorrow that as of last month, the Republican National Committee, the RNC, has already spent over $230,000 that they collected from Republican donors on the president's own legal defense in the Russia scandal. This is legal, but no president has ever tried to do this before, let alone a billionaire. As Reuters puts it today, quote, Trump is the first U.S. president in the modern campaign finance era to use such funds to cover the costs of responding to a criminal probe. And this unprecedented news about using Republican Party funds and using re-election campaign funds to fund his legal defense. This, of course, follows the bombshell news from last night that the president's campaign chairman has been told by prosecutors that they plan to indict him. That news from the New York Times last night followed close on the heels of news from CNN that the president's campaign chairman was twice in the last few years made the target of a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant, a FISA warrant, which is the kind of warrant you can only get from a FISA court judge for an American citizen if the judge believes that the American citizen in question is knowingly acting as the agent of a foreign power. I need to mention that NBC News has not confirmed that CNN reporting about the FISA warrants for Paul Manafort. But if it's true, it's also important to recognize that that warrant reportedly includes a time period when the president himself was continuing to talk to his campaign chairman, even after the inauguration, despite the president stating publicly that he hadn't talked to Paul Manafort in a long time, and him insisting that Paul Manafort had only been involved with the campaign for a short time. Apparently, they were still talking to each other after the inauguration at a time when, reportedly, Paul Manafort was having his communications surveilled because he was the target of a FISA warrant because a judge had been convinced that he was a knowing agent of a foreign power. Now, we don't know if the president himself turns up on the surveillance intercepts the FBI reportedly made of Paul Manafort this year. But given the reported timing, that does appear to be a possibility. Remember when James Comey said, "Lordy, I hope there are tapes." Lordy, there might be tapes.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.